The council chamber pulsed with alien light, cold and unfeeling, until a single voice shattered the silence. Her skin shimmered with constellations, her eyes wide with desperation, not fear for herself, but for the man beside her. A human, just a human. And yet, when the child screamed, "Don't let them take my human," even the oldest stars seemed to pause. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and if this story stirs something in you, don't forget to follow or subscribe. Tomorrow's chapter will leave your heart racing even faster than today's. The chamber was built to intimidate. Its ceilings arched like the ribs of a long-dead leviathan, polished so finely that the starlight from Threxion's 3 moons refracted into ghostly beams. Judges from 17 systems sat in thrones carved of memory stone, their eyes shielded by veils of quantum silk. Each word spoken here could bend empires. And yet, in that moment, no one spoke. No one dared. Because the child had screamed, she stood barefoot in the center of the chamber, trembling, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with unreadable patterns. Pale hair spilled down her back like liquid crystal. Her fingers, still small but certain, clutched the human's shirt like it was a lifeline, like he was the only thing keeping her from being swallowed whole by the void of power surrounding them. "Don't let them take my human," she had cried, and time itself had flinched. He didn't move. He stood with arms crossed, jaw tight, but not defiant, not proud, just present, like someone who had never asked to be seen but refused to disappear. His clothes were worn, not ragged, but real. Faded denim jacket, boots scuffed from corridors no noble had ever walked. A scar traced the ridge of his brow, quiet as an old thought. No weapon, no title, just a man. The silence after her plea was more terrifying than any outburst. High Magistrate Telen, a being of translucent emerald skin and ridged antennae, leaned forward, 6 fingers steepled beneath her chin. "This tribunal was not convened for sentiment," she said at last, her voice a whisper and a blade. "The child's custody must be returned to the crown. The human has no right of claim." "He saved me," the child said, voice smaller now. "You weren't there when the firestorms came. You didn't pull me from the glass fields." He did. A flicker moved through the rows of delegates. Not agreement, no. Not yet, but something worse. Doubt. The queen sat unmoving, her crystal-crowned head tilted, unreadable. Every breath she drew was political oxygen, every silence a calculus. But her eyes, they rested on the human. "Your designation?" she asked, without looking away. He met her gaze. "Dane Carter," he said. "Systems technician, dome cleaner, Habitat 9. Telen scoffed. "A janitor, then?" "Your species was not invited into parenthood by the Concord." He didn't flinch. Wasn't invited to a lot of things. Still showed up. The child clung tighter to him, her glowing eyes welling now, the lines on her skin swirling faster. "He's mine," she whispered. The words were not protocol, not permitted, but they echoed louder than any decree. For the first time in living memory, the tribunal did not immediately respond. No order given, no guard dispatched, just that unbearable stillness, one heartbeat stretched across 1,000 lifetimes. And in the stillness, the galaxy waited to see what would break first. The law, or the bond between a child not born of Earth and the human she refused to let go. Before she ever called him mine, she was just a whisper in the ruins. Dane Carter had been 3 days into a repair assignment when the dome collapsed. Habitat 9's upper quadrant, one of the outermost sectors on the light-born colony moon, was supposed to be decommissioned. He wasn't supposed to be there, let alone inside. But he'd gone back to retrieve a crate of ancient filtration cores no one else cared about. Said they were salvageable. Said he hated waste. The emergency beacon hadn't even fired when the glass ceiling gave way. The sky above cracked like a dropped mirror. Crystalline debris rained down with the sharpness of judgment. Dane dove behind a fallen support beam, breath hitching in his throat as the dome groaned under its own death. He should have radioed out, should have waited for backup, but then he heard it. A cough. It was faint, like the breath of a ghost. Then another, then a cry high-pitched and broken. He moved on instinct. The corridor had collapsed into a tunnel of jagged light and pulverized alloy. Steam hissed from a ruptured coolant line. He followed the sound, crawling over debris, boots scraping across shattered synth glass. At the end of the hall, tucked behind the burned-out remains of a fusion conduit, she was curled into herself, small, shaking, glowing faintly like a star learning to breathe. A light-born child. He froze. He'd never seen one this close. They weren't secretive, exactly, but they weren't raised among humans. They were sacred to their kind. Engineered of light and memory, said to carry echoes of the old galaxies in their DNA. Their birth was ceremonial. Their bonds, especially in youth, were psychic and rare. She was bleeding, not the way a human bleeds, but something deeper. Her skin flickered where her circuitry cracked. Her breath rasped like static, and yet she didn't look afraid of him. She reached out first. Dane wrapped her in his jacket and whispered, "You're okay now," though he wasn't sure she would be. The emergency response didn't arrive for 6 hours. He kept her warm, sang what lullabies he could remember, held her through the tremors that rattled what was left of the dome. When the med drones came, they tried to take her. She screamed, not in fear, in recognition. She clung to him with a strength that defied her size. Her circuits flared blinding white. "Not him," she had sobbed. "Not without him." Protocol gave way to confusion. And in the absence of clarity, he stayed. Through decontamination, through questioning, through the quiet weeks afterward when she refused to speak unless he was near. They gave her a name, Aelari, but she only answered when he called her Starbug. He didn't know why she chose him, why the bond rooted so deep, so fast, but he never asked for her to stop. And now, standing in the chamber of judgment, her hands trembling in his, he realized she hadn't chosen randomly. She had simply recognized what so many others had forgotten how to see. The council chamber had returned to its echoing stillness, but the silence was different now. Not tranquil, tense, like glass, just before it cracks. Dane stood in the center, Aelari at his side, the weight of 17 star systems bearing down on them like invisible chains. Every breath he took felt like it might be punished. "Let the humans speak," said one voice at last. It belonged to Chancellor Veluun, a spindly creature of translucent skin and gill-like flares along his throat. His eyes were wide and silver, with no pupils, no place to hide sympathy, even if he'd had any. "You claim to have rescued the child, yes. But what gives you the right to keep her?" Dane didn't flinch. "I didn't keep her. She stayed." "Semantics," snapped another voice. Judge Krellin of the Osari, whose bone-plated armor glinted with judicial rank. "The Light-born are not pets to be adopted by maintenance staff. They are sacred, genetically tied to our cosmic archives. She belongs with her own." Dane's jaw worked. "Then why did her own leave her behind?" The chamber shivered. Several of the council members bristled. Others leaned forward, intrigued. It wasn't defiance that stirred the room, it was the boldness of honesty, something most in this place had surgically removed. "She was abandoned during an evacuation failure," Krellin replied coldly. "An oversight, a tragedy, not an invitation. She doesn't call it a tragedy. She calls it home," Dane said, his voice low. "And no one came looking. Not until now." The Queen had still not spoken. Her throne was the highest, carved from the bones of moons that no longer existed. Her expression was a study in restraint, but her gaze never left Aelari. Not once. "She is of the Veilari cluster," said High Magistrate Tellin, "and she is the last child born under the Echo Eclipse. Her blood carries the codex of an extinct strain. That data must be preserved properly." Aelari's grip tightened on Dane's hand. "I'm not a container," she whispered. "I'm not your code." "Child," Tellen said, her voice softening slightly, "you are young. You do not understand what is at stake." "I understand enough," Aelari replied. "You want me to forget?" The words hung like dust in sunlight, small, glowing, and impossible to ignore. "She remembers because someone helped her remember," Dane said. "Fed her, cleaned her wounds, stayed up all night talking about stars and shadows and old Earth lullabies. She's not a specimen. She's someone." No one spoke for a long time. Finally, the Queen stood, her crown dimmed slightly, as if in mourning. "I would see the markings," she said. Dane hesitated. Aelari turned toward him, trembling. "It's okay," he said. Only if you want to. The child nodded slowly and raised her arm. The chamber gasped. On her skin, once hidden beneath shifting lights, were ancient patterns not alien, but human, and not just human forgotten. The patterns weren't drawn, they were grown. They pulsed softly under Ailari's skin, like silver rivers running just beneath the surface, forming spirals and arcs, fractal constellations and glyphs no translator could pass. The council stared, unnerved. This was not the coding of the Lightborn. These were not the inheritance marks of her species. They were older, stranger, impossible. Queen Asvarin stepped forward, descending 2 steps from her obsidian throne. The chamber followed her with a reverence that felt almost like fear. She stopped just short of the child, her violet eyes narrowing. "These symbols," she said quietly, "do not belong to the Vailari archives." Ailari's voice was small. "They came after." "After what?" "After him," she said, nodding toward Dane. Gasps scattered like sparks. Krellin rose to his full height, voice sharp as splintered bone. "You accuse this janitor of altering the genome of a Lightborn heir?" "No," Ailari said softly. "He didn't change me, he helped me remember." Dane swallowed hard. He'd seen the markings emerge over time after the first night she slept without crying, after she built a compass from scrap and found north in a planet that had no magnetic field, after she drew the same spiraling shape over and over in chalk on the floor. At first, he'd thought they were just something she made up, a child's dream scrawls. But one day, while cleaning an ancient maintenance vault, he saw it. The same mark etched faintly on the steel of a forgotten access panel, layered beneath 20 years of dust and neglect. The same spiral. The same line broken by a tail of light. And she had whispered, "I've been here before." "Those symbols," said a new voice, one that hadn't spoken yet, Judge Imara of the Solari Concord. "They look like meridian binding seals." A rumble moved through the council. "The meridians are extinct," Telen said sharply. "No," whispered Leah, the young aide who had been cataloguing forgotten languages. "They went underground after the Concord betrayed their custodianship. Their symbols survived in fragments, etched in hidden places like maintenance shafts or janitor closets." Dane muttered. Somewhere, a delegate stifled a laugh, but it wasn't cruel. It was startled, disbelieving. Queen Asvarin turned to Ailari. "How did you learn these patterns?" "They came in dreams," she said, "when I was with him. His stories made them clearer, his voice made them stay." Ailari stepped forward, bare feet whispering against polished stone. She reached into her pocket and unfolded a cloth scrap brown, frayed, soaked with cleaning solution, and held it up like an offering. On it, drawn in grime and chalk dust, was the full sigil. The Queen's eyes widened. She had seen it before, in a vault no one dared speak of, on the crown of a woman who had once held the council accountable before the forgetting. Ailari looked around at the silence and said, "He didn't give me power. He gave me memory." The silence after Ailari's declaration was not still, it was bracing, like the moment before impact, like the sharp intake of air before a verdict falls. Queen Asvarin held the cloth scrap in her hands, the grime-drawn sigil trembling between her fingers. Her expression didn't crack, but something behind her eyes, something old, something buried, rose to the surface like silt stirred in deep water. "Enough," Chancellor Veljun hissed, snapping the moment in two. "This display proves nothing. She remembers things no child her age should know," Judge Imara said, her voice calm but charged. "Glyphs no longer taught, stories buried in sub-level archives. That only makes the situation more dangerous," Telen replied. "If she's manifesting rogue glyph work under human influence, the bond may have damaged her." Dane's stomach clenched. "She's not damaged. She's waking up." Krellin stood, his bone armor grinding against itself like tectonic plates. Even if the child were recalling ancient truths, and that's still in dispute, her placement with a human violates interspecies guardianship code. He has no certification, no oath, no Concord bloodline. "I didn't need an oath to protect her," Dane said, voice tight. "Just a reason. A reason doesn't rewrite law," Krellin snapped. "It should." The words came not from Dane but from Lear. The young aide stood at the edge of the chamber, fists clenched at his sides. His pale, bioluminescent skin flickered with nervous energy, but his voice held. If we only enforce laws that protect systems of power and not the people in them, then what exactly are we protecting? The chamber turned to him like wolves spotting a crack in the herd. You are not authorized to speak, Veluan snarled. I know, Leah said, swallowing, but I'm still speaking. The queen said nothing. She simply watched. By every technical standard, Telen began, her voice cold and practiced. This human is unfit for guardianship. He cannot provide physiological attunement. He is unevolved. His species has no psychic channeling. His only qualification is proximity and, she sneered, affection. Aelari stepped forward again. He sang to me when the power failed, she said. He braided my hair when I couldn't sleep. He let me cry without making me explain. He didn't ask me to be more alien. He just let me be. Her voice broke a little. He didn't make me earn his care. He just gave it. Dane knelt beside her, heart hammering against his ribs like a prisoner trying to escape. You don't have to defend me, he whispered. I'm not, she said, eyes shining. I'm defending us. The queen turned to the tribunal. What is the council's recommendation? Krellin didn't hesitate. Remove the child from the human. Confine her to the genomic archives for study. The bond will fade. They all do. The queen's eyes narrowed. But what if it doesn't? She asked softly. No one had an answer, because deep down, they all feared the same thing, that this wasn't an accident, that maybe, just maybe, this bond was meant to exist. There was no law that allowed a child to testify before the High Tribunal. But then again, there was no law that had ever imagined a child like Aelari. She stood in the glow of the tribunal eye, small and alone, though Dane sat close enough to catch her if she fell. A platform had been lowered for her, a symbolic gesture at best, one more designed to make her appear fragile than powerful. But when she began to speak, the chamber leaned in like flowers turning to a sudden Sunday. I remember the first time he told me about gravity, she said. Not the physics, the feeling, the way it keeps you from floating away, even when everything else wants to scatter you. She turned to Dane. You said love feels like that, like something pulling you back to yourself. He gave a small nod, no smile, just quiet, aching presence. I didn't know stories before him, she continued. I knew protocol, I knew code, I knew the recorded dreams of the Lightborn passed down in optic flames, but I didn't know what it meant to have someone tell me a story just because they wanted me to sleep easier. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small bent piece of metal, half of a gear, sanded smooth on one edge. He gave me this on my first week. Told me it used to belong to something important, but now it could just belong to me. Said even broken things can still be held. Gasps whispered like wind through the chamber. Leah, watching from the scribe's bench, wiped a tear from beneath one eye. Even Judge Imara's usual impassive expression flickered with something softer. Telen tried to cut through it. This is sentiment, unverified, irrelevant to her lineage, but Aelari ignored her. She faced the council, glowing lines on her arms shifting with every breath. He taught me how to boil water before the filter lines freeze, how to read time from shadow angles, how to braid wires and hair, how to speak my fear without shame. He taught me how to name things, feelings, days, myself. And what name did he give you? Queen Asvarin asked. The question floated. Unexpected. Aelari smiled faintly. Starbug. The queen's brow lifted. Explain. He said I flicker and flare and always find my way home. The queen didn't respond at first. Her gaze went distant, as if she were remembering something not logged in archives, but buried in the bones of her past. Aelari took a step back and held up both hands. On one, her birthmark glowed faintly, the Veilari sigil, but on the other, drawn in ink from Dane's old earth pen, was the three-line meridian seal. One broken, one whole, one crossed by a meteor tail. He never asked me to choose between where I came from and who I became, she said. He just let both be true. And across the galaxy's most powerful court, not a single word rose to challenge her. They brought her to the Chamber of Ancestry at dawn. No tribunal decreed it aloud, but the shift in the council's posture, the way whispers fell quieter, the way robes rustled more carefully, told Dane everything. They were no longer sure she didn't belong. and that terrified them more than if she had never spoken at all. The chamber was carved from the heart of an extinct comet, obsidian walls laced with fossilized plasma veins. Fires flickered in suspended gravity wells, burning not with heat, but memory ancestral rites encoded in flame. Dane had never seen a room like this. Neither had Elari. He walked beside her, slower than usual. Not because of the heat, there was none, but because of what this place represented. A test. A trial not of blood or strength, but of recognition. If the flames knew her lineage, they would bend. If they did not, "You don't have to do this," he whispered. Elari looked up at him with calm eyes. "I want to know if the fire remembers me." High Magistrate Telen watched from above, flanked by Krellin and the rest. The Queen did not attend this trial by tradition. She could not. It was not hers to witness. Only the flames could speak here. Elari stepped into the central ring, where 12 arcs of memory fire floated in slow rotation. Each flame represented a pillar of the Concord's founding bloodlines. To most, the fire flared or flickered with neutral response. But when Elari moved, the flames curved. 1, then 3, then all 12. They turned toward her, not violently, but as if they recognized her. As if an old story whispered from her skin and stirred the core of the fire's design. And then, just outside the ring, a 13th flame long extinguished, a dim remnant flickered once, then twice, then roared to life. A sigil bloomed in the air, the same 3-line mark. Dane gripped the edge of the gallery rail, breath caught in his chest. The meridian flame. Leah breathed. "It lives. It cannot be," Telen hissed. But it was. The flame burned in a rhythm ancient and specific, one pulse long, one short, one that spiraled inward like a vow circling back to its origin. It didn't just accept Elari, it recognized her. She turned back toward Dane, arms glowing, and smiled. "You always said even ash remembers the fire." Then she stepped back across the threshold, and the flames followed. Not as attack, not as threat, but as guardians. They circled her, woven into the air like protective orbit. The chamber stirred. Krellin rose in protest, voice sharp. This proves only that her exposure to the human has corrupted the flame sensors. But he was interrupted by the fire itself. The 13th flame shot skyward, searing a trail into the chamber's memory dome. It didn't form a word. It formed a name, Elari Ward. And suddenly, lineage was not a matter of birth. It was a matter of bond. The air in the tribunal grew heavier, not with heat, but with meaning. Every breath now tasted of history, and the fear that it might rewrite itself in front of them. After the Chamber of Ancestry trial, Elari had not been restrained or removed. She had been escorted, carefully, silently, like someone too dangerous to threaten directly and too sacred to accuse without proof. Dane walked beside her, unsure whether he was being honored or watched. Probably both. Back in the central chamber, the council reconvened. "The flames have spoken," Imara said first. The Meridian lineage responded. "The 13th sigil has not burned since the time of the custodians." Telen's voice sliced the air. That line was sealed and outlawed. No one alive should bear it. "She didn't inherit it by blood," Dane said, his voice steady. "She inherited it by being seen." Queen Asvarin had returned to her throne, expression unreadable. Her crown flickered in tune with the tribunal eye above them, as if the ancient AI itself were thinking. "And you, human," Krellin barked, turning sharply, "where is your lineage? What gives you the right to stand here and claim a role in our sacred lines?" Dane didn't answer right away, because for the first time, he wasn't sure if he wanted to. He had lived in the shadows of these systems for years, fixing broken water lines, scrubbing glass floors no one else cared to see through, keeping things running beneath the surface. Forgotten, convenient, but Elari had forced the surface to see him. He stepped forward, jaw set. "My name is Dane Carter, born in the Solari Drift colonies, orphaned in the mining riots of Titan's second belt, raised in a Concord orphanage that forgot my file existed. I never had a crest. I had a mop." Snickers flickered through the room. "And what do you claim now?" Telen asked, voice oily. "I don't claim anything," Dane replied. "But someone else might." He reached into his jacket, and pulled out a folded, yellowed scrap of metal stamped with 3 partial lines, worn nearly invisible. A tag, a nameplate. It had been fused into the inside panel of his old maintenance locker, untouched for decades, until the day Alari traced her finger along the grooves and said, "This isn't just a number." Leah stepped forward, holding up a data pad. "That tag matches Meridian auxiliary supply crates," he said. "Only a handful were ever issued to non-military engineers. One's embedded with custodian families." Silence fell like a dropped blade. Dane swallowed. "I never knew what it meant, just thought it was junk, something left behind. And yet, you carried it," the Queen said, speaking at last. "Even not knowing. Isn't that what all this is?" Dane said. "Carrying something you don't understand until someone gives it a name." The tribunal eye flared above them. Then it spoke. Name registered, Dane Ward Carter. Custodial extension, Meridian Index confirmed. And the council, built to measure blood, had to reckon with something far more dangerous. Choice. For a long moment, no one breathed. The tribunal eye dimmed after its declaration, its lens twitching slightly, as if unsure whether it had awakened a memory or disturbed a wound. A name that hadn't echoed in this chamber for generations now hovered above them, rendered in threads of light. Dane Ward Carter. Meridian custodial extension. The implications struck harder than any weapon. The Forgotten 12. Leah murmured, voice shaking. The name pulled every gaze toward him. "They weren't military," he said, stepping hesitantly into the center of the room. "They weren't rulers. They were caretakers, civil engineers, cartographers, documentarians. 12 human families entrusted with safeguarding the knowledge of the Meridian Concord before it collapsed. They were erased," Krellin growled, "wiped from archives for violating the neutrality oath during the Rift Wars." "Not violating," Leah shot back, defending. "They warned the council. The council didn't listen. When war came, they protected what they could and disappeared." Queen Asverin's eyes narrowed. "And you believe this man is descended from one of those 12? "I don't think he needs to be descended," Leah said quietly. "I think he continued what they started, kept what the galaxy tried to forget." Dane didn't speak. He didn't have to. The glow from the eye painted his face in fractured halos, flickering like starlight through water. Beside him, Alari's small hand found his again. Krellin turned to the Queen. "Even if it were true, these are unrecorded bloodlines, unsupported, symbolic. We cannot rebuild galactic policy on sentiment." "No," Asvarin said. "But perhaps we should question why we erased people who kept the records we now depend on." The room shifted. The older council members squirmed. The younger ones stared, uncertain but listening. Talen, ever sharp, stepped forward. "Then let him prove it." The custodians kept vaults, locations lost, their data locked behind ancestral signatures. If he is truly of their legacy, he can unlock one. Dane exhaled, slow. "I don't know any vault locations." Alari's voice rose, soft but clear. "I do." All heads turned. She reached into her sleeve and unfolded a scrap of cloth, an old cleaning rag, from their first month together. In its creased fibers were etched tiny circles and jagged lines, maps drawn from dreams. Or so he'd thought. "I see them in sleep," she said, "in the gaps between starlight." Imara stepped down from her post, crossing the floor. She knelt before the child and examined the cloth. Her lips parted in awe. "These coordinates match one of the ghost sectors near the Quen Rift. No ship dares approach it without shielding. We approached it," Alari said. "When our dome failed, that's where he found me." A stunned silence fell, and then the Queen said, "Prepare a tribunal envoy. We go to the vault." Krellin hissed, "This is madness." "No," said the Queen, rising fully. "This is what sanity looks like when it remembers it has a soul." And just like that, a janitor, a child, and a memory older than power would be sent to wake a truth buried beneath the bones of a galaxy. The ship breached the Quen Rift on the 3rd day of transit. Even with high shielding and the Queen's private escort, the vessel groaned like it was sailing into the mouth of a god. The rift wasn't just a place, it was a wound. a tear in space where light refracted in impossible geometries and time felt like it ran backward for brief, dizzying seconds. And yet, as they crossed the threshold, Ailari slept peacefully against Dane's side, hand curled in his jacket as though she had always belonged there. The vault was real. It rose from the black sand like a monolith, half swallowed by gravity erosion, its surface etched with markings lost to Concord memory. The structure shimmered beneath a sickle moon. Not glass, not stone, something older, something kept. The envoy held their breath as they disembarked Queen Asvarin in ceremonial black, Lear clutching 2 scanners, even Judge Imara walking with visible reverence. Krellin remained aboard, refusing to step foot on a monument to treason. Dane stepped forward first, not because anyone asked him to, but because the vault recognized him. The doors didn't open, they exhaled. Dust spiraled outward in slow, spiraling coils. Inside was a chamber of mirrored panels, each one reflecting not the people present, but memories of those who had stood there before. Ghosts of custodians, tall, robed humans with grease-streaked faces and notebooks in hand, walking among alien delegates, standing beside ancient flames. Ailari gasped. "There," she whispered, pointing to the far wall. 3 concentric circles pulsed with a soft hum. Dane approached, heart pounding. The circles responded, spinning inward, a keyless lock waiting for a name. He reached into his pocket and pulled the worn metal tag. It vibrated softly as he held it forward, then lifted from his palm, floating, aligning with the light. A sound unfurled, not music, not speech, but something remembered. Then, the walls opened. Within, rows of crystalline tablets glowed to life. Not data for conquest, not weapons, archives, histories, truths that had been hidden when the Concord chose unity over honesty. "These are the Meridian records," Lear whispered in awe. "The missing covenants. All of them." Queen Asvarin stepped forward, laying a hand on one of the crystal panels. Her voice trembled not from fear, but from memory. "My mother spoke of this. A final accord buried to protect those too kind to survive the politics of peace. Kindness wasn't their weakness," Dane said softly. "It was their armor." Suddenly, the sky above the vault shimmered. Clouds bent in unnatural arcs. Stars curved in spirals no chart had ever mapped. Ailari looked up. "It's starting. What is?" Lear asked. She touched the panel and said, "The sky bowing low. It's what he told me once. When the truth's too heavy to stay above us, it comes down to be carried." And as the tribunal eye, now hovering silently above in orbit, began broadcasting the vault's contents galaxy-wide, the sky did bow low, and no one could pretend not to see it anymore. The revelations from the Meridian Vault tore through the Concord like fire through silk. By the time the envoy ship returned to the tribunal, chaos had already taken root. The Queen's return with living proof of the forgotten covenants alongside a human janitor and a child marked by flame had destabilized the very architecture of galactic rule. But not everyone welcomed the truth. In the velvet chambers behind the council dais, where diplomacy often dressed its knives in silk, Chancellor Veluan met with Krellin and 3 other high-ranking delegates. Their voices did not rise. Treason never needed to shout. "She cannot be allowed to formalize this," Veluan said, his eyes shimmering with artificial calm. "If the Queen legitimizes the Meridian records, everything we've buried for centuries will rise." "And if the humans rise with it?" Krellin asked, fangs barely sheathed. "We'll have janitors rewriting law. The Concord survives because of careful forgetting," hissed Senator Aros of the Ash-Blood Clade. "We teach peace by limiting memory." They all turned toward the shadow in the corner, a figure draped in ceremonial white, with a voice like silk tearing. "Then we must interrupt the memory before it roots." A pause. "How?" Krellin asked. "The girl," said the shadow. "Sever the bond before the Queen can sanctify it. Remove the human. She will fold without him." And so the plan unfurled, quiet as frost. They came for Dane in the corridor, just beyond the sleeping quarters. 4 guards in muted armor, their insignias blurred by light-scrambling tech. He'd just finished telling Ailari a story, something about trains back on Earth, and how they always found the right track eventually. He didn't have time to stand before a baton cracked against the back of his knees. He fell hard. 2 guards held him down, while another placed a suppression collar at the base of his neck. Neural stunner. Crude but effective. On whose order? He managed to grunt. By declaration of emergency authority, one guard said coldly. The tribunal deems you a destabilizing agent. Ailari's voice sliced through the corridor like lightning. Let him go. She was small, but the power flared from her skin in sudden arcs, alive, volatile. The corridor lights flickered. The air snapped. A fifth figure stepped forward, robed in white. You will come with us peacefully, child, the voice crooned, or your human will suffer. Ailari stared at Dane, trembling. His eyes met hers. It's okay, Starbug, he whispered. Do what you have to. She closed her eyes, and the world shifted. The corridor warped around her. Glyphs flared beneath her feet, meridian sigils etched in protective spirals. The guards screamed as light surged through their suits. The robed figure stumbled backward, shielding their face. From the ground, Dane watched her rise, small, glowing, furious. I remember everything now, she said. And you forgot the most important part. What? The figure hissed. She looked at Dane and smiled through tears. I don't fold when he's taken. I fight. The chamber doors were already open when Ailari stormed through them. Her skin shimmered with radiant fury, her eyes streaked with tears that lit the floor with every step. Behind her, the guards who had tried to seize Dane lay collapsed in a corridor of light, not dead but altered. Memories pulsed across their faces like dreams on fast forward, as if she'd returned something they didn't know they'd lost. Dane stumbled in after her, supported by Lear and a wide-eyed technician who had yanked the suppression collar free mid-chaos. His knees bled, his ribs throbbed, but he didn't stop, not while she still stood. The council had already gathered, alerted by the security breach. The queen, robed in midnight silver, stood at the head of the dais. She did not speak. Not yet. She waited. Ailari took the center of the room. I don't care what blood says, she said, voice echoing through the silence. I don't care about my genome, my glow, my code. I don't care if the stars marked me for something bigger. I already chose my bond. A child cannot make such claims, Krellin barked, rising from his bench, his voice stained with desperation. Her mind is unformed. Her logic, emotional. That's the point, she snapped. It was emotion. That's how I knew. Dane tried to speak, but his throat failed him. She turned to him, just for a second, and that glance steadied him more than any medicine could have. She turned back to the council. He didn't make me remember who I was. He helped me choose who I wanted to become. By what law do you claim him? Talen asked coldly. By no law you wrote, Ailari answered, but by one older than you remember. She reached into her tunic and drew out a piece of synth metal, polished, scorched at the edge. It had once been part of the crumbling vault wall. Now it bore a symbol, 3 lines, one broken, one whole, one crossed with a meteor tail. She knelt, placing it on the tribunal floor. Then she placed her hand beside it, and with the other, she reached for Dane. He stepped forward, limping, bleeding, standing. He placed his palm next to hers. The tribunal eye stirred, and then, without decree, without coded command, the ancient machine recognized the gesture. Custodial bond, registered, heir ward confirmed, legal guardianship, activated. The glyph lit the floor. It burned up into the ceiling, pulsing through the tribunal's crystalline dome. The stars above realigned in the display, just a fraction, just enough to witness. Queen Asverin stepped forward. Her voice was low, but resolute. Then let it be written, she said. Blood may carry legacy, but choice carries truth. The bond is sanctified. Krellin collapsed into his seat. Talen turned her face away, and Ailari leaned into Dane's side, whispering, I told you I wouldn't let them take you. He smiled, ragged and whole. You didn't let them take us. The galaxy did not change with thunder. It changed with the hush that followed. In the weeks after the bond was sanctified, systems across the Concord paused not because they knew what would happen next, but because for the first time in centuries, they didn't. Lawgivers fell silent. Schools rewrote their histories. And across border worlds where humans had been confined to shadows, children began drawing three-line symbols into the dirt. One broken, one whole, one crossed by a meteor tail. At the Hall of Convergence, Queen Asvarin convened the first custodial assembly in over 300 years. Not just rulers, but keepers. Not just enforcers, but rememberers. Dane stood at the Queen's left side, not robed or crowned, but dressed in the same faded jacket, the rip at the sleeve hastily patched with a child's stitch. He didn't speak much. He let the others talk, posture, reframe. That was fine with him. He wasn't there to perform power. He was there to hold space for it to be better than before. Aelari sat beside him, legs swinging off the edge of the dais, watching stars scroll across the domed ceiling as the tribunal updated its protocols. She hummed softly to herself, sketching spirals onto a tablet, half language, half memory, half dream. "Do you think they'll remember this?" she asked. "They'll try to forget," Dane said. "That's how it always starts. But forgetting takes effort, and you're not easy to forget." She grinned. "Neither are you." At the center of the floor, Lear stood before the council, older now not in age, but in bearing. He'd been appointed Archivist Emeritus, the youngest in recorded history. He held up a new codex written not on digital crystal, but embossed in binding resin and human paper. "The Custodial Covenant," he announced. "A charter not of dominance, but of remembrance. Guardianship no longer bound by bloodlines alone, but by chosen truth." The Queen stood, "In honor of those who kept memory when it was safest to forget," she said. "We restore the right to claim and be claimed, across species, across class, across silence." She turned to Dane and Aelari. "Let the name Ward be more than inheritance. Let it be a verb." Dane blinked. "A verb? To ward something," the Queen said, smiling faintly. "To protect it, to shelter, to keep it clean, so others can see what was always there." Aelari reached for Dane's hand, lacing their fingers together. "You're really bad at speeches," she whispered. "Yep," he said. "Lucky you're the one they'll quote." The tribunal eye flickered above, no longer a weapon of surveillance, but a lens tuned now to meridian indexing, rewritten to record not just law, but intention. And across distant systems, as the new code propagated, as old prejudices crumbled, as janitors were promoted and orphans were named, the galaxy stirred, not from fear, not from victory, but from a new kind of light, the kind that doesn't blind, the kind that invites you to see.